So, welcome everyone today to our webinar. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Jennifer Edic, and Jen is an educational consultant and a missionary with Literacy Evangelism International. She travels around the world training and teaching, and we are so blessed to have her here with us today to share some insights that are helpful for us. So thank you, Jen.
Absolutely. What a pleasure to be here this morning and to see these lovely, brother and sisters. It's such a joy to be able to work together in doing God's work, really, to be workers. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a few slides that will help us kind of track our pathway today. So let me do that. Oh, let me get that going. Hold on, one more. Hold on my technology. There we go. And now we can share the whole screen. There. How's that? Everybody see okay? Yeah. All right. So, well, let me start by giving a little bit of background about who I am and what I do, because it's a little bit different than some others from Literacy and Evangelism International, and so I want to give you some background of who I am. I spent over 30 years as a teacher and an educator in the United States in schools with children. I started out in a classroom teaching and moved up over the years into becoming a leader and a principal, a director in school districts, overseeing many schools and many teachers. And I studied teacher education, how to help teachers be better at their teaching. And I did that for, as I said, over 30 years. And in the meantime, my father, Don Edic, was a missionary with Literacy and Evangelism International, and he started using English as a second language or another language for people he was working with all over the world. And of course, today that has evolved into this amazing Light of the World curriculum and the leadership of Melina and all that she does to help people all over the world use English as a way to reach people for Jesus. And so every once in a while, I would help my father. He would be traveling somewhere, and it might be when I was on vacation, and I would go with him and work with some of the English teachers. And as time went by, probably, oh gosh, it's been 5 years now, I started doing more of the ministry work with my father, and have been doing a lot more ministry work and left my job. And I work still as a consultant in education and with organizations, but I also work now helping English teachers and teachers of all languages around the world, helping them be better as they're implementing the curriculum. So I support the teaching and help them with ways to better implement their lessons and to troubleshoot and think about ways that they can continue to be successful with things that are working and look at things that might want to be improved for their students. So that's kind of where I am in my ministry. And I travel around the world, and I work with people, and then I also work online. And so today I want to share a little bit about something I call communities of practice. Today I want to share about how as teachers, we are much more powerful and we can become better at what we're doing when we work together, when we collaborate. And this webinar is a chance, by attending this webinar, this is a chance for people to collaborate, to work together. So I want to tell you a story about collaboration and to help you understand why it is so powerful and so important. Even the Bible talks about how God asks us to work together as brothers and sisters and be together. And so there's even a biblical foundation for us to collaborate. But I want to tell you the story of this young man in this photo. This is my oldest son, Mason. And in this photo, he was 18 years old, and he had finished his schooling at home and he was ready to go off to university. And he decided to go to a university that was all the way on the other side of the United States. So I live in California on one side of the country, and he was going to college all the way on the other side of the country. It was a 5-hour flight in an airplane. So here he is packed up, and we went all the way to Philadelphia, the city where he was moving to, and I dropped him off and I left him there and prayed for him and said, I know, son, you're going to do well, and your family and God will always be with you, and said goodbye to him. And I came all the way back home and left him all the way across the country to begin his schooling. But 3 weeks later, he calls me and he says, I'm not feeling well, Mom. I think I'm sick. And I thought to myself, that happens many times when young people go off to live on their own and live with a lot of other young people. They get sick, colds, and that it's common. But he continued to tell me that he wasn't feeling well. And he went to a doctor, but the doctor said he was just sore, but he could not get better after several days. And he began to feel so bad that the pain in his stomach was causing him to not be able to even sit through his classes or sleep well. And so I told him, you need to go back and you need to see the doctor again. And, we hope that our children learn to take care and to speak for themselves. And so in my head, I thought, oh, he's just not telling the doctor what's wrong. He needs to learn to do this. So I said, when you go to the doctor, I want you to put him on the phone with me. And so I want to hear what you're talking about. So he went to the doctor, and I realized he was telling the doctor how horrible he felt, and he had fevers and sweating. And the doctor said, well, okay, let's take him to the hospital. And I said, he doesn't know where the hospital is because he's new to the town, to the city. So he was able to put him in a van and get him to the hospital. And when he got to the hospital, they did a test and immediately put him into the hospital because his appendix had ruptured and the infection had spread through his entire body. And the surgeon started treating him, named Dr. Braslow. And Dr. Braslow called me all the way across the country. And he says, your son is in a lot of danger. The infection is so bad that we cannot remove his appendix because inside his body is like tissue paper and it will fall away and he'll have permanent damage. And so we need to first try to get the fever and the infection under control. And Dr. Braslow said, I'm going to wait a few hours, but if he doesn't improve with the antibiotics and the medicines I'm giving him, I have to go in with surgery and clean out all of the infection that's all through his body. So he waited, and Dr. Braslow called me several hours later and said, I'm sorry, but we have to take him to surgery. So, of course, I got on an airplane, I flew, and Dr. Braslow met me, and Mason had come out of surgery, but his body shut down and wouldn't function. Nothing about his whole system was working. He could not eat, he could not drink. And Dr. Braslow was one of the very best surgeons in the whole area of Philadelphia. But he took Mason's situation to a group of other doctors that he meets with every week. And he said, I'm going to share about what's happening with Mason because I'm not sure what to do. He says, I could go do more surgery, but it could cause permanent damage. And he is young and otherwise he is very healthy. And we could cause permanent damage to his intestines, his system. And I don't want to do that. But he's also in danger because he cannot eat, he cannot drink, his body is not functioning, and he can't go on like that. And so Dr. Braslow went to his fellow doctors and he shared the story of what was happening with Mason. And the doctors thought about and looked at Mason's information, and they talked about all of the different ideas that Dr. Braslow could take back and use to help treat Mason. And then another week passed, and he went back to his community of doctors and shared more of what was happening. And they talked together and talked about their ideas and talked about situations they had encountered. And Dr. Braslow came back and he said, I'm going to wait because I think his body will be able to recover if we can get it started again. And I don't want to cause permanent damage. And we may have to put a feeding tube in him to keep him going. But we'll see in the next day or two. If his body begins to come back and function properly, it will just start. There's nothing we can do to get it going. But he said, I don't want to do surgery. My colleagues, my fellow doctors have talked to me, and we have shared this, and we decided we think this is the best course of action. So thanks be to God. One day later, before they had to put a feeding tube in him to feed him through his veins, his body turned back on and he recovered without having to have any damage to his system. Today, this is Mason. He is 29 years old and he is perfectly healthy. And the reason he is healthy, of course, is because of the grace of God and the prayers, but also because Dr. Braslow worked and collaborated with other doctors. And he decided to take his expertise. He was a very, very good doctor. But he also knew that working with others could help him be even better. And because of that, and because he collaborated and worked with others, he was able to help Mason recover with as little damage as possible. And Mason is, as I said, he's healthy today and doesn't have any long-term health problems, even though for 3 weeks, his body was not functioning and he couldn't eat and he couldn't drink and he had the horrible infection. So I share this because as teachers and tutors, we can do the same thing that Dr. Braslow does. And this is also something that teachers all over the world in different, whether they're in schools or in churches or in communities teaching, this is something people do because collaboration is a way that we can work together to look at what we're doing, to analyze, and to improve what we're doing, our practices that will help us be better individually and will help all of the people that we work with, that we collaborate with, to be better at what they're doing. And in the case of this community that meets with Melina and uses Light of the World, this is something that I want to share as an idea for you to do together to improve your practice. And there are many different ways to collaborate, structures and ways to do that. So I'll share some of those today, and we'll even give it a try. But collaboration is a way for us to be better at what we do, and to help us when we're teaching, because teaching is very hard work. You're dealing with students, and unlike Dr. Braslow could use machines and he could use surgery to look and see what was going on inside of Mason. Hello, Guyan. But as teachers, as tutors, we cannot see always what's going on inside the heads of our students. We don't know always how they're thinking or how much they understand. And so our job is sometimes just as hard as a doctor or a surgeon, because we're having to figure out what's happening inside the human mind. So what we call this this collaboration in education, it's called a community of practice. There's also other names. Some in schools in the United States, they will often use the term professional learning community, but it's the same, means the same thing. And it's a group, and this is the definition. It is a group of teachers or educators who meet regularly, like we do here in this webinar, who share their expertise, who share their experiences, to analyze the student learning and how their lessons are going and how the students are learning, to plan new ways to instruct students, and to work together to improve teaching skills and to improve the student learning. And so a community of practice, you actually already have the beginnings of one, because you are already meeting regularly and sharing strategies on implementing the Light of the World curriculum. So I want to stop, and I want to give you a chance to ask any questions or make any comments about what I have shared so far. And then I will share more about how you can effectively use collaboration and create a community of practice of ESL teachers. But I want to let you ask questions as well.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jenn, for sharing that amazing story about your son. And what a beautiful and brilliant thing that was, that the doctors were able to meet regularly and collaborate and talk about their difficult cases so that they could share. Each one has different knowledge and experience. And I can see how, for all of us as teachers, those of us who are on here, I know, who are teaching English, when we have questions, like I have this student and he's just having difficulties in this area, how it would be really beneficial for us to talk about those difficult cases and get feedback from one another. Um, how about you guys, Tanya or Tang or Gian? I know you just joined us, Gian, but do you guys have any questions or thoughts?
I think it's really important as teachers, because I've been a teacher for a while, and yeah, it can be very isolating as a teacher, right? There's not really, I'm thinking back years before, there wasn't really any discussion, especially adjunct right? The part-time teachers, they just kind of come and go. They're not even part of the staff or anything like that. So definitely um, a very necessary and beneficial for everyone, right? And I'm sure it helps job retention as well, and stops turnover from teachers coming and going, um, and of course encourages students too. So
Yeah.
just a wonderful idea. I'm glad that, or a wonderful practice. I'm glad that people are doing that nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad to have a good leader in Melina, because I know she does the very same thing as well with others in her field and
Yeah.
meets with them. And I'm glad to have a good leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Tanya. Teaching and tutoring can be very isolating because normally we do it by ourselves, whether it's with one student or with several students. We usually, if there's somebody else we teach with, they have a class or a group that they teach, and we do ours. And so this is a chance when we collaborate in a community of practice to to better be able to share that experience with others, definitely helping us improve on things that we might be struggling with, but also a way to share our successes and share some of the things that we've tried that worked really well that maybe someone else can learn from. And that again is kind of the purpose of this time that you all have. I'll share a little bit more about what that looks like and how you can set it up, but I'll give anyone else a chance to ask a question as well.
Yes, yes, it is very important to collaborate each other. And then when we teacher, if we collaborate each other, we know each other, how to communicate other, how to teach other, how to teach the student. We have to share each other. It is very important thing. I feel like this.
Yeah,
They collaboration.
thank you. Thanks. So let me share a little bit more, and I'm going to keep my eyes on the time. How one of the questions, once we talk about how collaboration can be so powerful and help us, the question that I often get is, how do we do that? How do we collaborate? Is collaborating just having a meeting? Is it learning a new technique? And yes, it can be all of those things, but there are some other aspects of what you want to do when you collaborate in a community of practice. One of the things you want to do is you want to take time as you come together as a group to establish what we call working agreements. And these would be to take time to talk about how you want the meetings to be, what time, how often, how will people treat each other, how will we agree to maybe take turns and have everybody get a chance to share? Will we agree that what we talk about will simply stay in our meeting, that we won't share out things that people talk about in our community of practice, that it's a safe space to share openly some of the challenges that we're facing, knowing that no one will go out, for example, and talk about it with other people. You decide what is the situation, what are the agreements that you make to each other as you come into this space to share. And it takes a commitment. It takes people in the group saying, yes, we will be there. We will join at the given time that we've agreed to meet, and be committed to coming to the community of practice and bringing ideas and bringing challenges or sharing whatever the topic is for the day. There needs to be a commitment to it. And there needs to be scheduling, which with this webinar, you already have a regular schedule. If we commit to being part of a community of practice, we're committing to helping each other, and we need to commit to to being there, when we say we will be there. And that means scheduling at a time and a place and a frequency, the number of meetings that meets the group's needs. Some communities of practice meet weekly, like Dr. Braslow and his doctors. Some meet every month. Some meet every 2 months. There's no right or wrong. The commitment comes from the group. The group decides what works best for them. Okay. And the fourth thing that you need when you create a community of practice is a process for sharing, a process that allows everyone to get an opportunity to share, for everyone to get an opportunity to provide their ideas and to hear from others when they want ideas, like Dr. Braslow wanted ideas from the other doctors. And when I say a process, it's what I call a protocol. Sometimes when we come to meetings, we're learners. We're just learning something, which is very important. And one person may share, like I am today, and we are learning. Okay. That is not a community of practice meeting. That is a learning meeting, and those are very good. Sometimes you have a meeting where maybe people are talking, but one person does most of the talking and only gets to share a little bit. And in a community of practice, you want to have a process that ensures that everybody has an opportunity to share and to get information and feedback. And there are many different ways to do that. Okay, there is no absolute right way to do it. It needs to fit the group. If you have a community of practice that is big, let's say you had 20 people, you might think about breaking into smaller groups of 4 people. I have created many different processes for communities of practice. And so I will share a couple of ideas, but the point is that in the community of practice, everybody gets to get something and learn something from others, and everybody gets a chance to share and give out to others. Okay. And so a process or a protocol helps that happen. And it can be a structure that helps that happen. So let me share a sample, an idea of one process that a community of practice could use. And this one is something called a glow and a grow. And a glow is something positive, something good, a success. And a grow is something that I want to do better in, that I'm struggling with, or maybe I just think I could do better. Maybe it could be a bigger problem, or it could just be a small area that I want to improve on. And this process would be, if you were going to do this, if I was going to do this with a whole group, 4 people in a group, I could have everybody take a turn in like 1 hour. And so you can do this where everybody takes a turn. And what happens is one person starts. So we'll do an example in a minute, but one person starts. Let's say Tanya shares and she takes 5 minutes. And sometimes I actually set a timer. I set my timer on my phone for 5 minutes. And the reason I do timers is because many of us, me included, when I start talking and telling a story and sharing, I lose track of the time. And I talk all of this time. And then my colleagues, my friends, don't have as much time to share. And that's a common problem. And it's not because people mean to be disrespectful, but it's just we get caught up in telling our story, right? And sharing. So I use timers sometimes with my communities of practice to help them learn the timing of how much time. So we would start, and for example, Tanya would start and she would share a glow. She would have 5 minutes to say, here's what worked really well in my lessons today. In Light of the World, I was using this lesson and I was doing the Bible story, and this is what I did. And she would share, and the rest of us would listen and go, oh, that's a great idea. Or, oh, let us celebrate with you, and learn from her success. And then 5 minutes, Tanya would share a grow. Tanya would share, I'm having a problem with my students doing their homework and finishing the homework part of the lesson. And she would share something she wants to be better with. And after the 5 minutes, the rest of us would begin to talk about Tanya's situation that she wants to improve in, her grow. Tanya would not talk. She will be taking notes, listening to us talk about her situation. And we might say, oh, I've had this problem too. Or I wonder if she did this. And we would provide ideas and suggestions based on our experiences. And we would talk about different strategies we have used to help our students do their homework. And Tanya would take notes and listen to us. And after 5 minutes of us talking, Tanya would be able to ask any questions or respond to anything that she heard us talking about. And then that she would have notes that she could take back and use to try to improve in her area of her grow area. And then we would switch. And then the next person would get a chance to share their glow and then their grow. And the rest of us would share our ideas. And then we would go around and everybody would have a chance to share. So that is one process. Do you see how there's a process to it that allows people to share? Questions about this sample process?
So what do you think is the optimum size? For example, if you were doing a glow and grow, would it be like 5 participants or?
5 would be the most, because if you do 5 minutes to do a glow, 5 minutes to share a grow, 5 minutes, so you're talking about 15 to 20 minutes for each person. So you can see how that could take over an hour. You need to look at your group size and how much time you have. Some communities of practice will meet for 2 hours, so that provides more time. Some communities of practice will have only 1 hour, and so they will you'll only have 4 or even 3 people in a group. You need at least 3 people, because 2 people need to talk to each other while the third person listens. Okay. Sometimes you can use the glow and grow if people come regularly to the community of practice. Maybe you do a glow and grow with only 2 people or 1 person each time, and you take turns every time you meet. And maybe it's just 1 cycle, but everybody takes a turn. And so if you have 5 people in your community of practice, I sometimes use the term COP. So if I say that, that's what I mean, community of practice, COP. Sometimes you'll have 1 person go the first week, then the next week another person. So it doesn't have to be every week, everybody. And this is how you can adjust and adapt the processes to fit what you need. So for example, if we do this right now, if we practice this, we'll just do it with 1 person. And then maybe the next meeting, the next webinar, it starts out for the first 20 minutes, somebody gets to do a glow and grow. And then the rest of the webinar maybe is some other learning or other things. Okay, you can adjust it. Do you want to give this a try? Or do you have more questions?
Well, I was going to make a comment too. I think the glow is really important. I think that's pretty much a lot of what I'll skip over. Just like, okay, I just need to grow and
Mhm.
whatnot, and never really stop and recognize and be thankful and appreciate the glow.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So I think it's an important process as well to
thank
keep
you.
myself from being too negative.
Right. Or
All
discouraged.
negative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
discouraged. Yeah.
And the glows and the grows do not have to be big things. You have to come prepared. The participants need to come prepared to share. But they don't need to think of big, oh, I had a student who suddenly is speaking English fluently, you know. It's a simple thing sometimes that we need to celebrate the success and share that with somebody else. And it could be something that they want to grow in, and you've just shared an idea. And it can be a simple thing. Maybe a student that hasn't spoken a lot, and suddenly you've been able to get them to share and practice their English in the group more. Something as simple as that. Yeah.
It does require humility.
Yes. This is a process. A community of practice needs to be built on trust. And those are those working agreements that we trust that everyone wants to help and others grow and improve. And of course, we know that as brothers and sisters in Christ, we are all working towards the same mission of sharing the love of Jesus. So in a community of practice like this, that's an easy thing. So let's do an abbreviated version. Let's see if somebody will share a 2 minute, we'll shorten it, 2 minute glow. Who would someone actually, let's ask a volunteer since you didn't have time to prepare. Is there someone that would like to practice this? Who is teaching? Pastor Tang, would
I
you or
have one, but
Tanya?
I'd love to hear from Pastor Tang. Oh,
Yeah. Just glow is that in glows we have to see the timing. Yes, it is very important thing. I see the one glow, and if we have glow, if we see the timing, we can adjust the timing also according to what we have meeting timing, and then it will go grow. It will improve. We go according to that glow, and we see it will fit the timing. It will be totally improve in
Yeah.
teaching area also.
Pastor Tang, thank you. Can you share something in your recently when you've been tutoring? Can you
Yes,
share something good or a success that you felt like worked well for you?
yes. And for me, I have 10 students,
Mm.
mostly from both background and then some Christian background also there. And then they're just coming, they're learning English, and then we share the gospel to them.
Mm-hmm.
We have some affected for them with the song also. And at the same time that I was teaching in that Bible college, and it's
Mm.
all things how we see. Today we have a lesson, the community of that practice. It is how much important for us also, for me especially.
Yeah.
I see that one.
So you have 10 students who come regularly?
Yeah,
They're
regular. Yeah,
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. 10 very committed students.
yeah.
That's great. Can you share, if you can think of something, one small thing from the teaching that you're doing in the light of the world? Is there something that you would like to be able to do better, that you wish would work a little better, or something you're trying that's not quite where you want it to be? Is there something that you would like to improve in one of the lessons coming up?
Yeah. Most this year I'm using that using English every day. That course I'm using this year. In
Mm.
last year, mostly I'm using the Light of the World, the English course. And just I am using it is my handbook, and then some important things just I added to them, especially according to our culture.
Mhm.
Just our culture, I'm doing that one.
Yeah.
Mix up.
Is that something that is a challenge, is difficult for you about, is there something in the lesson that is a hard thing for you to do?
Not hard. It's okay. The lesson is very good lesson.
Is there something you wish that your students were learning better, that they
Yeah,
struggle
yeah.
with? What is one
Uh,
thing your students
yeah,
are
yeah.
struggling with?
Some student, their level is different,
Ah,
and their level is different. That's why sometimes for them it is hard, and then just
yeah,
I give teaching how to say that slowly and able to understand. And then sometimes just now with a glue, I'm using this one.
yes,
Just I give a 2 minute or 3 minutes to have a conversation and just asking them the question to sharing how do they understand on that
yeah.
lesson.
Very
Yes, I just
good.
giving that. Yes.
So that is good. Right now, I would like you to listen to Tanya, Melina, Gayan, and I, and we are going to talk about how, when we're tutoring, how do we handle situations like you shared, where students have different levels and it's harder for some to understand than others. Okay, so Melina, Tanya, Gayan, if you can, let's let Pastor Tang listen and share some of the experiences. This is a common challenge in classes. I have heard this before. What, Melina, Tanya, Gayan, what ideas do you have? Have you tried? Yeah, we're just going to talk like a casual conversation. So,
Hey, this is Gyan here. Jane, thank you for giving us time. Pastor Thang's problem is everybody's problem. I have 24 students and I'm teaching them every week, twice a week, for 90 minutes each, and it's a big challenge. There are some students out of 24, basically one who has almost zero knowledge of English, and he's struggling to pronounce any vocabulary. He's struggling to memorize these conversational sentences. He's struggling to memorize Bible verses.
mhm,
So what do? I give him a special attention.
mhm,
I go to him closely and encourage him that you're going to do good. Keep practicing. Pray before God,
mhm.
and you will learn. And so I have seen within 2-3 weeks' time, he is improving because of the great encouragement that I'm giving him. I'm giving him close attention, better attention than any other students, even in the class. I go to him, stand nearby him when he says something.
Good.
So this is this is what I'm doing. I don't know much about how to help Thang, but this is what I'm doing in my class, and I'm seeing little improvement.
Great. Thank you. Thanks. Melina, Tanya, what else? What other ideas? That was great suggestion. What other things have you guys tried?
Well, one
I,
thing, oh, go ahead, Tanya.
oh, no, I was just gonna say, again, that's very shepherd-like what you're doing. And so this is a beautiful picture of just, yeah, being a good shepherd. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks so much, Gian, for sharing that. And it's wonderful
My pleasure.
that you have such a big class. And one thing that you can do with a multi-level class, if you have an assistant in your classroom, it's always nice to have someone, another teacher or someone you are training up to become another teacher, that can give more assistance to the lower level students. and go over, just as you said, Gian, you stand next to him, you maybe explain things to him a little bit more, you're with him. And if you have someone else in the classroom who can do that also, sometimes it could be a higher level student who's in your class, but I always like to, ask someone else in your church or your community, hey, would you like to help us with the English class? And that gives you not only another set of eyes and ears and hands in your classroom, but also that volunteer teacher will start learning more and may be able to take a class of their own as your program grows.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for Pastor Tang and Kian,
Yeah.
that's
So
yeah.
that's a wonderful idea. Having other students or another helper, that also is very effective in helping a student who has a lower level. Definitely. So I'm going to stop because we're making this a shorter process today. But do you see how this works? Now, we can let Pastor Tang ask any questions about what he heard us talk about. Pastor Tang, do you have any questions about what you heard the four of us talking about? Or do you want to share anything further about what you might try with your class from what you learned in this process?
Yes, I learned about that volunteers. Yes, it is very
Yeah.
good idea. I learned it as one. And then sometimes some people are lower in education. Then I just separated two groups.
Yeah.
Sometimes in some area, and then just I give a time to who are lower in education.
Mhm. Yes.
More, and after they grew, and after they improve, and I just added with different level, higher level. I did like this. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I get it. Idea. Yes.
One of the things I noticed when we did this process, not only did you see how there were ideas that Pastor Tang could go and implement and try, but also he was encouraged to hear that we face this, all of us face this similar challenge. And so that's part of the other benefit. Not only do you collaborate to get ideas, but you also come together and feel encouraged. And I know that Tanya talked about how it's so isolating. You're alone teaching so many times. So this is a chance also for us to encourage each other. So these processes in a community of practice are important, that you structure them. Because if you just have people come in and talk, many things will happen. What's talked about won't be helpful necessarily. And one person may do all the talking and others won't get a chance. And so these processes are important. And Glow and Grow is one example of how you can set a community of practice process up. The other sample would be to, for example, do something called a lesson study. Maybe the group, and you can do all of this. You can decide one time to do a lesson study, one time to do a Glow and Grow. But a lesson study is another way to collaborate where, for example, we could all practice working on our theme picture part of the lesson. And we could talk about ways that we want to have more students talking. Maybe when we start our lesson, only one or two students share and the rest sit quietly and don't want to share. So maybe we talk about how could we do this that would encourage more students to share when we ask the question, what do you see in this picture? And we would decide, hey, let's make every student, before we have students in the whole group share, everybody has to turn to a partner and share what they see because then even if they don't share with the big group, they are talking and practicing English with one other person. And so we would decide to go to our next class to practice this partner sharing strategy. And then we come back and we take turns in the circle sharing how did it work with our students when we implemented this new strategy, and talk about what we did similar and what we did different and what worked. And that's another process, a lesson study, I call it, for working together all on the same lesson to try something new or to try something that somebody brought in, a good idea, and then come back and talk about how it worked and how did the students learn. Did more students talk? Did more students practice their English when we had them share with a partner first before with the whole group? And that's a way to also improve our practice in teaching. So you can see there are several different processes that you can use with a community of practice. There's no right or wrong. It has to fit your group. You need everybody to participate, and you need to commit to meeting regularly and supporting each other. Those are three important things about a community of practice. And I think it would be very easy for this group to create one, a community of practice to really focus in on the teaching. So thank you. That's all. I think I did pretty well with the time. I will answer questions, and of course I can always come back and share more.
Oh, wonderful. Thank
I'm
you
good.
so much, Jenn.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
There we go. So
Um,
hopefully I'm going to let you close out, Melina. But as I said, I can always answer questions and always come back and share more details, or even try out one of the other protocols or processes.
okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.